Starting soon. 1 second. I imagine y'all can hear me, but there's not many, so getting my stuff working still. Where did my camera go? Well, we're gonna go back to this one because I can't find my camera. 1 second. Which camera is working? This one? This one? Ooh, the good one's working. Okay, we might be in business. Okay. I think I did it. Okay. Yay! Can hear and see me now. Yay! Thank you for letting me know. It's always a fun Friday. Technical difficulties. So, hello and welcome to anyone watching. Oh, we have 7. Wow, that's actually more than I expected on a random Friday. So thank you for joining us. It's not supposed to be random. It's supposed to be every Friday. That's the intent. And I am Tracy Lenz. I'm the owner and I guess CEO, main engineer, certified appraiser for Pecan Tree. Also the founder of our startup that we started, was it 2 years ago? Officially 2 years ago. But you know, the Pecan Tree itself was started 5 years ago. Oh, over 5 years. A while back. So, hello. I am the founder. I am Tracy. I am the engineer. We do a open call, not open mic, because there's only one, but open question, open Q&A Friday. I am kind of in a weird mood today, so I apologize if it's extra rambly. I gave that warning last time, and I got a hello, Miss Alice, aka Mom. So I gave that warning last time we had the live, and it was extra rambly, and so it was apparently a good warning. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there today. That yeah, it's a Friday. It's the end of May, right? So, well, pretty much the end of May. They rush by. And so it's the end of the school year. So it's all the things. So, you know, up at 6 a.m., helping a very, very excited 8-year-old get ready for field day today. That was the start after like an already busy week. So, yeah. If you're there right now, that's where I am. If you were there in past years, that's also where I am. So thank you for joining us today. I am going to get started with just some news. I don't have a whole lot. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot of like breaking news that's gonna like change everything overnight. I mean, most of the time. Over the last 5 years, I guess there are days you could have said that, but most of the time, for the stuff that we're doing, where we're setting a market value of oil and gas and helping people guide what's happening with their oil and gas, it's not, you know, there's no major news stories that are really going to change things overnight. It's more the micro stories for people. So the what permits are filed and which areas they're going to drill, and those aren't the stuff that Reuters is covering anyway. So, but there's a couple things that I thought I would just cover, and I'm curious. Oh, you know what? I didn't actually get it all the way set up. I have this I'll preview it. No, it didn't work, man. So I have this a news background. You'll see it next time. So make sure to like and subscribe so you hear about when we do the live next time, because I have some fun background stuff, because those who work with me and have to live with me know that I have a weird sense of humor. And I think that's I'm going to use these lives for like having some fun with it that way. Anyway, so next week, tune in for some really cool graphics that I'll be adding. But for right now, I'll just talk through it, and we'll just do the standard PowerPoint desktop thingy, the boring PowerPoint. Okay, I'll do. Hey, look at that. We have double me down here. I can fix that one though. I really am a more prepared engineer than I am live streamer. There's a reason I'm going to edit some of these down to more polished videos. So there we go. Okay. And that's not ideal. Okay, I feel like that made that really small. That works for now. This is perfect. This is exactly what I planned on it being. Okay, nope. There we go. Okay. So we have kind of the same story as the last time, where oil, it's been trying to gain, but there's still just that long-term or relatively 6 to 24 month view that it's going to be a bit before oil recovers. And it's around those expected increases in OPEC production. So OPEC being the major oil producing countries that are not the US. And if I was a more national news or international news person, I could like spout them off, but it's pretty much the Middle East plus Russia. That's the majority of it. And so that, their expected increases would increase supply, which would reduce global pricing. That's still the major driver, and that's not really expected to recover over the next 6 months at least. So, and that's still the major story that I'm hearing. So there was a Super Doug conference, which, as a side note, I think that I don't know, maybe it's just growing up with like Doug as a cartoon. All I can think of is like Super Doug as a superhero, and that's just the funniest name for a conference. But Super Doug, and I think it's a unconventional. I should know what does Doug stand for. I should know this. One sec. If you know what it stands for and you can beat me Googling it, put it in the chat. See who wins. Super Doug 2025. Yeah, it's by Heart Energy. I'll share my desktop for this one. Oh yeah. Are y'all able to hear my dog? She's wanting to join the live stream. Yeah. So Super Doug, Heart Energy. This was one of the more recent big conferences. I mean, that was this week. So some of we were looking up what it stands for. Do they? Home? Oh, wait, I saw it. Has anyone? Drilling user group. Isn't it funny how it's not anywhere up front? Sorry, now it's just bugging me. About? Surely in about, it would say. Okay, now y'all have to hear my dog now. No? Okay. Well, developing unconventional gas. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Okay, thank you. You win. Wins the prize. I knew the middle word was actually, yeah, thanks, Whitney. Yeah, Kelly, yes. So you could hear Crystal then? Yep. Developing unconventional gas. I wonder how that one originated. But yeah, unconventional gas. So it's all around the shale oil, like shale oil and gas. But I mean, when we say oil, most of these shale plays produce both. There's very few that only produce oil. There's some that have the ability to produce oil and gas, and they've been ignoring the gas. And so you think of it as an oil play. But yeah, so this Super Doug, the whole point of this is that the Super Doug main headline that I saw out of it was, I go back to our little headline here, that the fracking companies show a forecast with a shale slowdown. So it's still having that overall like slowdown despite the best efforts to pump energy, new energy, we'll say. That it's really just, we're seeing a slowdown, and we're seeing it in the rig count and the frac count. So fracking is when the wells are completed, and that's usually the first thing that slows down, because you don't turn off wells that are producing, typically, unless things are dire. And you don't, usually there's it's a big ship to turn around to stop drilling, because there's a lot of things in motion. There's a lot of money that you've spent. Which camera is this that's doing this? Oh, this one. Okay. Here we go. There's a lot of money that's already been spent when you're drilling wells, and commitments and obligations and contracts when around drilling, that it's hard to turn that ship around quickly. And so the fracking is one that you can, they like, wait, hold off a little bit, or drop a frac crew and wait to complete a well. And so then you have a whole bunch of what they call ducks. So I know what duck stands for. So drilled uncompleted wells, because the fracking is the completion. So the fracking is the first thing that really slows down. And so that's one of the things that you can watch to be an early indicator of what's happening, because when wells aren't being completed, that means they have to slow down drilling, which also means they're going to slow down putting new wells on, which means you're going to reduce production. And then you're going to have to, that's when the impact to the bottom line actually starts happening. So it takes a while for supply to start being impacted once demand starts getting impacted in some way. So what I wanted to show directly after this is, let's see if I go here. So you can see the rig counts and the frac counts, and I'm going to go to, I'm just on the oilprice.com rig count on here, and I'm not particularly attached to this site. There's been a couple different sites I've gone to for rig count, but I don't think I paid for this one, so I think it's free. But you can see what the rigs are doing. So here we have in red the crude price, and so you can see this one's, so here is February, and so here's where that big all the tariff and OPEC news stories came out here, and then we've been down, kind of bouncing around 61. And I'm hoping that, like, if I just show this different ways each time, y'all will start to get a comfortable feel with the data itself, rather than just, that's kind of my goal, is to get people comfortable with seeking out the answers on their own. And don't forget to track your time, Tracy. Sorry, that's an inside joke. So you can see the frac spread. I don't know entirely. data source on the frac spread. And also these seem to be a little broken because I've clicked around on here and you go to the 5-year, well, now it's working. Before it was showing kind of weird views. Okay, I will get to questions right after this, just showing the rig spread, because I had kind of a idea of we would play around with Rowland.AI, which is a land AI that it's like a chat GPT specifically for oil and gas. And I thought it'd be fun to play around with and show kind of how things are. But I'd rather be answering questions if there's questions. So, okay, let me finish up this and then we'll hit questions. So any of y'all that are on small screens, you might not be able to read the chat. But I will pop up the question kind of big in the middle of the screen here once I get to that. Okay, so here you can see, like, short term, you're not going to see the rig counts really move a whole lot, but you do start to see them drop after the April news, and it's kind of on a weird scale. But if what I was saying with frac spread is it's I don't know exactly their source. I hadn't had a chance to dig in on this particular site source, but overall it's just saying that there's less frac crews out there that are completing the wells, and that's in response to their, and all the other things we talked about. You can also see a rig count by basin. Oh, maybe this is the one that looked broken. So if I have to go to the 5-year view in order to see a 1-year view on this one. So this is oh no, it's just weird scale here. All right, well, here's 2020 and it dropping. Oh, that seems wrong. I feel like this is a broken view. Like, I feel like this is recent data, but it's not. Okay. We'll find a better site for next week. Like Baker Hughes had a good one. Do they still have that? I don't pay as much attention to like specific counts because I'm looking at them on a map. Like, it's just like I could see the map of specific areas being drilled. So, yeah. So this has the dates here. I think it's just the graph that's broken. But yeah, the rig count is going down. And but what was kind of interesting is the by basin. Even if this data is from 2021, and I think it's just that the scale is off or something, but it does show, if this is an all rig count of around 400 or 500 wells, rigs. So a rig is the big tall thing that you see drilling a well. So that's how many are currently drilling a well in the country. Could have been in 2021 or could be now. We don't know. Data's fun. But there's around 400 or 500 rigs that are drilling a new well today in just the U.S. And of those, we have at least half of them, little more than half, are in the Permian. So the Permian being the like West Texas stuff, we'll just say, into New Mexico, kind of all that area, all that activity there. Over half of the rigs in the U.S. are just there. And then the next highest count, which I thought was funny, is the other bucket. So that's funny. I forgot I had this camera. The next highest count is the other bucket. And so if you have 226 in the Permian at this point in time, 61 were other places in the U.S. that weren't in the other, like these buckets here. So if you have, let's see, we had 438 in Energy Consulting Group. Yeah, I knew there was a better one that I was on here for news and I saw they had a rig count. And so I was like, oh, I'll try out their rig count. But I guess I will go to a different one next time. The next highest one that's not like the other grouping is, let's see, at this point in time, Haynesville. And then Eagleford, Marcellus, Williston. So Williston being the Bakken, Cana, Woodford. So that's like Oklahoma, right? So it's, I mean, DJ's had man, I got to turn off toggle. It's going to be reminding me the entire time. I just think that's funny how it really shows why there's so much focus on the Permian. It just really is where all the big swings and stuff is. And this kind of highlights that scale. Because on top of that, Permian's drilling the biggest wells. So the impact per rig is highest in the Permian too. So, maybe on a equivalent oil basis, some of the like Haynesville and Marcellus wells, they can get quite large in terms of amount of gas and like energy output that it's actually producing. But in terms of like how much impact to the national supply, the Permian per rig is the highest. Without even seeing it broken down in data, like hard data, I would argue that pretty easily. But then because then these other areas you have just either shorter wells or slightly like they're cheaper to drill, but they're not quite as good economics, or they're less competitive, or the land prices are. Man, how do I turn off all these notifications? I'll just go off of. It's fine. Y'all get to see notifications during the live stream. We're gonna run with it. It's a feature. It is an entertaining feature of the live stream. So let's go ahead and just move on to okay. Kelly, before I get to that question, I am curious, is that a prompted question, internal or external question? The second, number 2, and I'm just curious. But okay, getting to the first question. Hey, it worked. Okay, I'm gonna get off of this advertisement, like free advertising for other companies site. Okay, so, thank you, Fabian. Welcome back, Tracy. How do you see the new LPG routes affecting appraisal of both operated and non-operated assets? Like liquefied petroleum gas routes? Let me double check. Let me Google something to make sure I know exactly. Yeah, freight route, right? Okay. Yeah. In terms of how it affects appraisal of both operated and non-operated assets, I mean, it's it's going to affect the places where you can get things internationally easier. So everywhere where there's excess pipeline capacity to get out of the basin and to the Gulf or to the shores, to anywhere where there's open waters, right, where you can start getting to the shipping channels. And then if you just think off the bat, places that affects, that'd be the Haynesville, Gulf Coast, Marcellus, if it can get to, there's routes in place to get it there. Eagle Ford's very close to a lot of really good shipping routes. Permian has built up quite a bit of pipeline capacity going, but there's also a large demand for pipeline capacity, like leaving the Permian. So I think that one's just going to be a perpetually stuffed pipeline leaving the Permian, if that makes sense. It's like building an extra highway in Houston. There's always going to be congestion around, rush hour. It just is. And so, like a better highway, like being closer to work in an area of town that isn't as congested, that means something. It increases the value of the homes in that area. But if you're already in a congested area, and you'll still be in a congested area, but you're in a congested area because the values of those homes are already high, then more access to more transportation and bigger airports and more ways to get, things in and out of that area just continues to keep that area high. So in terms of affecting Permian, I wouldn't affect it. I don't think it would affect it too much. It might keep natural gas from going negative. That'd be one thing. Which would be great for a lot of those plays in the Permian if we could keep natural gas from dipping below zero or even below $1, right? If we could keep natural gas prices in Permian at least, above $1, we'll just say, then most of the Permian plays have enough oil to carry it, at least as long as oil stays above 50, because a lot of those plays are really economic. So Permian should be okay. It shouldn't affect Permian too much. If anything, I would think that less demand or less like international trade of oil and gas would probably help Permian, because it helps other areas relatively more. But that's getting to a little too high of complexity for my Friday live brain. But I think that the most immediate places are where it's going to impact it the most. I mean, it's just going to be, if you watch the, so like Natural Gas Intelligence has the spot prices for natural gas. That's kind of my go-to for let me switch it back to the desktop. Natural Gas Intelligence, Platts is also another. So S&P Global Commodity Insights has Platts now, and so that's also a source for this type of data. But these forward basis curves are what to watch for the areas that are being most affected by this news, and they're already starting to change because of even just the potential for more exports. So then, and just if you look for certain, let's see, this is Chicago Citygate. So Chicago Citygate is kind of my go-to for the Utica, like shale kind of, let's see. Yeah, all this is like the Appalachian stuff here. It just has big swings in the winter. But I think any of those big gas plays, just watch the hubs. I was seeing if there anything interesting on their news stories here today. Oh, I can do that off. Okay, so Waha midday. This is Waha is the. I've always heard it pronounced Waha. I'm just gonna go with that. That's West Texas. That's the primary index for West Texas gas. And so let's see. Will this let me zoom in? Oh, I can show y'all my new feature on my mouse. This is like my nerd feature. I got a new mouse, and I figured out last night that I could program a button to zoom in. Isn't that fun? So I did that just for stuff like this. So this is the this is the absolute pricing. So this is saying that dollar per MMBTU, that's about $1 per MCF of gas. So about a standard. If you look at like the Wall Street Journal and it says the price for natural gas, this is the standard way to look at it. So we've been, if my cursor, right here is 0, it's been bouncing around 0 for a while. There we go. Well, that didn't do it. Can I zoom in more? Aha, look at that. So it's been bouncing around 0 and below 0. So for anyone that has to pay, like this is what you've been feeling and seeing, we went above 0 for a little bit and now kind of like bouncing. It's between $0 and $2. Like it's not anything groundbreaking either way. But yeah, that's the stuff we're talking about. West Texas just being very constrained. So, all right, go back to just me. Okay, we'll go. Thank you for the question. Let's see. Next question. I'm scrolling through. Hello, Lee. I watch a lot of homesteading stuff because if I had a family who enjoyed the outdoors at all, I probably would have convinced them to have like a ranch or farm by now, but I don't. And I have no interest in doing it myself. So we are here. But I can't remember what bushcraft is. I'll have to look that up. Okay. So questions from Kelly. Let me look. So I know that Kelly emailed me a question. That's why I'm pulling up the question to see if this is the same one or if this is a different one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this question and hit this one. And Kelly, if you could let me know if this is the same question that you posted or if this is a different one. Okay, I'm pasting it in, so it's a little too long. Okay. Paste in something not as long. Same question? Okay, so since it's not pasting in, I'll just go off of the one that you posted in here. No, that's funny. It looks like a different question. Anyway, we'll go ahead and hit this one. Oh, clicking on it on the wrong screen. Okay, so this one is submitted. So if like we have on the screen, if you want to ask a question but you don't want to have your name associated with the question you're asking, because this is like personal finance type questions, feel free to submit it via email and we'll keep it anonymous as to who's asking and what question. Now I will say, if your name is like, if you say, oh, that's my question, and it has your name like in your YouTube handle, I'm just saying, I've seen that happen a couple times now, and if you want it anonymous, like make sure that your YouTube handle is also anonymous. So, okay. So looking for a legit legal resource to help my family with mineral rights issues. Mom passed away 10 years ago with a small estate and inherited mineral rights that have been transferred to me. Okay, so the mom had a small estate and inherited mineral rights that were transferred to this person 10 years ago. Okay, transferred to that person and their 2 brothers. Stepdad outlived her, and unfortunately, the will estate wasn't probated because it's so small. Appreciate any resources or suggestions you might have. Okay, so what's happened here is that theoretically they inherited these minerals, but legally, the legal system doesn't know who is actually supposed to have the minerals and anything in the estate until the will is verified as the will. And that's the whole point of probate is, it doesn't matter who has the will, like you have to show that it's the correct one and that there weren't any other wills and weren't any other people claiming it. So theoretically, it's kind of in like estate purgatory, right? It's like hanging around waiting for the next thing to happen. And probate in some place, like I don't know what state this is, but sometimes these are scattered across multiple different states and it needs to be done in the state that the asset is in. So if, great grandpa Joe was a lawyer and picked up mineral interest all across the country by being part of these deals, then each state where he picked up that interest in, and now you have a portion of a portion of a portion, you have to probate in that state. So that's one benefit of putting things in a trust or some type of external entity that defines what happens to the assets when someone passes away, so that you don't have to go to the court system to define what happens when that person legally no longer exists. Like you can get it out of the estate. You don't have to get it out of the estate. It just naturally flows. So that's one of the main benefits, is that you don't have to pay money. It's like prepaying for probate is how I've heard it referenced. But so, okay, stepdad outlived her and unfortunately wasn't probate. Yeah. Okay, so what I would do and what I've seen done is a couple different options. You could, if you're looking to sell it anyway and you're just trying to get a handle on it, and then sell it, which I do recommend if it makes financial sense to do, to get a good handle on it and then go to the market. It's kind of like doing the renovations on your house before listing it for sale. You get stuff in order, figure out what you need to fix and what you need to make like as best as possible, as best presented as possible before you interact with the buyer. Before you interact with the buyer, you have it in the best light. And that goes for anything you're trying to sell, right? Including mineral interests. So if you can get it all clean and like ideally you have a little binder put together, like digital binder, and you can just say, here's everything I have, full title on it. Here's how you know it. I know exactly what I own and it's perfect and clean and I'm being paid on everything and I know exactly what I should be being paid on. And right, like that maximizes the value of your asset, like the base level of your asset. So it's similar to a house. You're never going to get it like above a certain point. Like even if you have the absolute most renovated house in the neighborhood, you're still in that neighborhood, but it does get it to where you get top dollar, at least for what you have. But we'll just stick with the housing, analogy. If you're in a situation where it doesn't make sense for you to do a $30,000 kitchen remodel, you could still sell your house. You can still make money. You can still rent your house. Like you can still do stuff with that. So one strategy is if you were to find a buyer who would work with you and include the probate cost in the purchase. So basically you pre-negotiate how much it would cost for them, like how much they're allowed to account for probate. But this is where they're going to say like, oh, I don't know how much research it's going to take. I don't know how long the courts are going to take. I don't know. I mean, it might uncover things that you don't actually have. And they're going to start whittling down the price, right? That's just what's going to happen. And they're taking on the risk and they're taking on the legal fees, but they are probably much more efficient at that research. Maybe they can do a lot of that research themselves. Maybe they are lawyers themselves who are buying it. It's kind of like selling a fixer-upper to a DIYer, or selling a fixer-upper to someone who works on homes for a living. Like that's the idea, is if you were to do that, they'd be more willing to look past those things and put a better value on it than someone who just wanted a really clean transaction. So that would be a way that's probably what I would do if it was roughly the same cost as the value. So if you were to if you were to ballpark how much the total estate was worth that you were trying to get probated, and that estate is worth about the same amount as the bill you would pay the lawyer to do the probate, that's when I would start looking at those type of options. Unless you were just not wanting to mess with it at all, and you're like, look, Mr. Buyer, I have no interest in spending any time on this at all, and I'm willing to lose out on the funds to just get it off my plate. So those two situations, you could go down that route. I've also seen it where I'm going to say this is an option, but with the caveat that I don't really like this as an option. You could have, I've seen it where the lawyer takes a cut of part of the estate that they're doing the probate on as part of the payment. I don't really like that because it seems very steep, but if you wouldn't get it otherwise, then it's not steep, right? It's kind of like those tax breaks where they get like 30% or something, some high number, or 40% of whatever they can reduce your taxes by, and it's like, oh, you wouldn't get that anyway if you weren't going to fight it without them, but it seems kind of high if they have like that's what they do, and that's why you're talking to them, like a monopoly on it. But I am not an attorney that does that, so I don't have like intimate knowledge of maybe why some of those things are. Let's see. Another option is there's attorneys that will help small mineral owners do things very efficiently. They obviously don't like blast their name across every billboard because it's very expensive to do that in any form, right? In this industry, to advertise at all in this industry, there's a ton of competition, which is why we don't really advertise that much yet, at least. We're basically competing against all the buyers that are trying to get cheap minerals by putting their name in front of as many people as possible. We would be competing against all of them because we're trying to put our name in front of the same people to say, hey, here's how you can know what your stuff is actually worth before you sell it to someone. So, I would, both with a bias and with my unbiased hat, would say that we would have a great solution for someone like that to at least see what you're dealing with and the potential, like, is it worth getting out of probate? Because I have seen it several times where people didn't think it was worth that much. Specifically with like Medicare situations where they're like, oh, there's this asset that Mrs. Smith owns. She's not getting paid on it. The family doesn't really care about it. She doesn't even really understand it, but the state found that she has interest in a well because of some tax record or something. And they're like, oh, it's just, and they call me and say, hey, could you please write it off? Or not write it. They don't ask me to sneak anything under the carpet or anything, but more just saying, hey, we all know this is not worth anything. Can you just write us a letter saying that this is not worth anything? And 9 times out of 10, if not more, it really isn't worth anything. But every now and then it is. And that would be something to check before you say, hey, probate's worth more than this is. Our software can do it for less than, $50 a tract. If you were to only have one parcel, one legal description in that deed, you could just, for $50, you could figure out if it was worth going through probate. And, we have estimators that it'd be a wider range, but it could be more of a finger to the wind, but for free. We have those type of estimators on our site too. So that's pecanestimate.com is our website. I would plug that stuff into there if you're able to find it. And we can help with that if you need help finding it. We offer the ability to build in people's portfolios if they're not really sure where the things are, but they want to use our software. We do offer that consulting, and that building help. And just the setup. And then once you're set up, then you can choose what to do. If you want to purchase something through the website, or if you want to get custom appraisal services, if you want transaction guidance or help, if you want, we have a Pecan portfolio, which is more asset management and giving you tools and data in order to be able to manage your asset better and see what the wells are producing, which wells you should have interest in, which wells are being drilled. I think so. That actually leads into the next question that I saw. Oh, okay. Is there a software program or app to help organize mineral rights and all the details or data involved? I'd love to get it all organized so when we pass down to the next generation, it won't be the mess it is now. So this is why I was asking if this was a staged question, because this is exactly the use case for our pecanestimate.com. And I'm not above staging a good question and this type of thing, because we are doing these live streams for free and we don't have an advertiser. We don't, if you're seeing YouTube ads, I'm not getting any of that revenue. That's just them putting it on top of my video. So I don't mind a good staged question, but I am curious if thank you if you did stage this question unintentionally. So software. So our pecanestimate.com is a web-based platform, and we give both the tools to organize your minerals and the tools to see what those minerals are then worth. Because it's all leading up to it was established because we needed it for our appraisals, and we needed to come up with a very efficient way to do that. And it's all the tools that we use for the appraisals, but you can use them yourself to organize and figure out as things go, and then utilize our engineering model to pull in those insights and scopes and estimates and evergreen values of both the well's production and the state's value and portfolio's value as it changes. So I would recommend that, and let us know if you need help setting that up. Okay. Lee, I'm looking for a cost-efficient way to get a landman in Harrison County, Texas. Do you have to pay large amounts for a competent and trustworthy landman? I wouldn't say you have to pay large amounts. I think it's from the people I've worked with and know and like, it's more of they're just super busy. I think any competent landman that's trustworthy is just really busy these days. There's just so many people that are in a very similar boat, that it's more just finding ones that have time to help. And I feel like we're actually in that same boat too. But yeah, we do have some recommendations, and we're working on, increasing our network, in order to be able to connect more people to the right people. Next month, I'm actually going and speaking at the Landmen's Association conference, like their annual convention in Kansas City. So if you're going to be in the area, I'll be there too. But that's the whole convention of landman. So, and it's funny, the landman really end up being like the salesman of the industry, where they're like, oh yeah, anything, say jump, they'll say how high, because that's just the answer all the time for everything, but the hard part is finding one that can actually live up to all the hype. That they tend to be pretty big talkers, right? So it's just the surface level is always a hard judge, but if you're not in the industry, you don't have a network. Who do you go to? So yeah, we are trying to get a little more of a network together. If you are a landman and you're watching this, like, we'd love to talk to you and establish something also. We always need help setting up our appraisals, so we do a large amount of our own land work in-house. But a lot of portfolios, that is the biggest lift, is just figuring out what people own. And so we do work with several landmen in order to get that established. The question came up earlier this week from a client that I think would probably be good to address as part of this question. And that question is, how do I know when to call an attorney, when to call you, Tracy, or when do I call a landman? Like, because he was working with several different professionals, and he's like, if I, before I knew any of y'all, if I got an offer for something, I would go to an attorney and say, what do I do with this? And I kind of laugh, because it's like, if I got an offer on my home, I wouldn't go find an attorney and ask him what to do with an offer on my home. It's just funny that this industry works that way, right? Like, people don't know who else to ask, and the only time they ever, encounter an oil and gas professional is usually when you legally have to transfer it from one person to another. And so the only person they know who knows anything about oil and gas is their attorney. It's like, it's just kind of funny. But he's like, who do I go to for any of those situations? And I didn't really appreciate that. I mean, I've heard it several times, but it is a very confusing thing, because you don't necessarily know what an attorney does and what, like, an oil and gas attorney, what they do versus what engineer would do versus what an appraiser would do. Is it different versus what an appraiser versus an engineer would do? Or what a landman even kind of does? Like, is the TV show anywhere close to correct? Like, if you've even seen the TV show, right? And I've only watched the 2 episodes still, so I'm not the best reference anymore on that. But the answer I gave him is, if it has to do with negotiation, the landman, like, the first person I would go to is a landman, because a lot of them can figure out a lot of the same stuff as a lawyer, but with lower hourly rates. Not because they're less of a person, they're not less of a people, but just because there's a little bit less education involved. A lot of the time, there are a lot of landmen that are attorneys, like licensed attorneys also. So it's not always cheaper, but I would argue that a landman attorney combo probably understands what you're needing better even then. But that said, a lot of times you can get lower hourly rates, like something closer to like plan on like $500 to $1,000 a day for day rates, and then it kind of scales from there. So yeah, landmen aren't in that $500 to $1,000 an hour range usually, like some attorneys are. Is really what I'm saying. So I would start with a landman if you could, and have them at least get established. Like, make sure you know what you own, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but just that's where I would go if you're trying to establish a new contract and you're having to negotiate something or figure out a unitization. I think you would eventually want to have a contract reviewed by a lawyer if that landman is not himself or herself a lawyer in that state that your asset is in. But if it was a small enough asset and the landman used like a stock template and it was allowed in that state, it's not the worst thing. So at least you're getting someone who can put eyes on it. So I would start with a landman, and if there's ever a question as to what value should then be assigned to this, like what are we missing out on if we don't do this? What price should we ask for if we're doing this? What bonus should we ask for? Is this a good royalty rate? Like anything that affects the dollar flow, even down to, is this like, what would the impact of this term be? Like if we don't ask for continuous drilling, or if we don't ask for a certain depth severance, or if we don't get the shallow lease rights, like how does that affect the value? Anytime a value is involved, I would go to an engineering-based appraiser. And that's because you're probably working with more complicated things if you're even considering those topics. And pure straight up like cash flow multiples aren't going to cut it for that type of question. And that's really just what we do day in and day out is look at that type of stuff. So I would go to an engineer like me, like our firm. We have several engineers that do this type of stuff day in, day out. Our software, like we plug in our knowledge into our software and it feeds the data that feeds the model. That's where I would go for that. Anything related to that. So including if you need an appraisal for IRS purposes or estate purposes, if you're looking to see what your cash flow is going to be for the next year, or if you're looking to see if like manage gifting over a couple years to fit within the thresholds, like if it has to do with value, that's when I would go to an engineer. But if the value that you're looking for is just a check the box exercise, because you don't care, it's not saving you any taxes, it's not, you're just trying to check the box on something relatively minor, and there's not anything, there's not large checks coming in, there's not, it's not changing hands, there's just something you're trying to do. That's when I would go to alternative ways to value things. So, again, trying to just, toot our own horn. We have our Pecan scope, where it's programmed by an engineer, but it's an automated engineering model that's producing it. So it's more similar to like a Zillow's estimate on your properties, or similar to like going to Bloomberg and looking at the trading price of something. It's an automated report. It's an automated valuation that can lead to someone like me looking at it. And then I would also group in that same bucket if you were to go to anyone else that's ever put a value to something. Like that's where the landman valuing it, your CPA valuing it, your tax advisor or your attorney saying, well, I sold something last week in the same county for this much, or you're taking the last 3 years 1099s and averaging it and multiplying it times 3, like any of those rules of thumb, I would bucket in that same category of something that's, if you're just trying to get a feel for what ballpark you're in, either because the person asking doesn't care that much, or if you're just trying to get a feel for what the next decision is, or if you're just trying to keep tabs on it, but you're not actively doing anything right now. And that's why in our Pecan portfolio platform, we have it real-time updated. Whenever we update our model, whenever we put in new prices, it will throw in the new Pecan scope, is what we call it. So that's the Zillow's estimate of saying, hey, this property is worth between this much and this much, and your properties all together, like here's the general trends, here's the general value. That's what we're trying to hit with that. We will be launching Pecan portfolio like formally in the next, I'm just going to say next 3 weeks. I think that's safe to say 3 weeks. Maybe I'll say next month just to give us extra time, but we will be launching it formally. It is softly launched right now. Like some people are using it. We just don't have like the big fanfare yet. So we'll go through it all here. Fred, I know that we're like at 3:07 already and it's been a while, but did I answer your question sufficiently if you're still here? Okay, so I feel like there was more to Fred's question, but I have his email, and I mean whoever's email that was, and I will I'll answer it there. So okay, well that was much more fun for me, at least. I don't know how fun it is to hear. I always really like this stuff, so it's entertaining for me, but that's why I have all this stuff in the background trying to help it be entertaining for y'all. Let me know if there's questions that y'all have, if there's topics you'd like me to cover. I am eventually going to put out like a real video at some point. Have a great weekend, y'all, and we'll see y'all around. Thanks for joining us today.